No noise, no questions. If you make a noise, Mr. 44 makes a noise. 3, don't you ever try and f***ing run on us, because I got 6 little friends, and they can all run faster than you can.
The 90s were a true golden era for indie films. That was the time when bold, unusual, and often super low-budget projects started breaking into the mainstream. Young directors, who just a moment ago were seen as outsiders in the industry, suddenly caught the attention of major studios and created movies that later gained cult status. One of the best examples from that period is From Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay, Ramblers, let's get rambling.
Technically, it was directed by Robert Rodriguez, but most people tend to associate the movie with another name, Quentin Tarantino.
I'm from room 11, and me and my lady friend need some ice, and we don't seem to have an ice bucket. If it's not too much trouble, could I possibly borrow yours? I'll bring it right back.
And that's not by accident. Tarantino not only wrote the script, but also played one of the lead roles. His style is everywhere. Sharp dialogue, wild plot twists, and unforgettable characters. It's so strong that many viewers still mistakenly think Tarantino was the one who directed it.
What was the nuttiest thing I did, Seth? I'm curious. Tell me, what? What was it?
It's not the time, Richie.
Was that the nuttiest thing? That was nutty, not to mention stupid.
From Dusk Till Dawn feels like two completely different movies stitched together. The first half plays out like a classic crime thriller, tense atmosphere, razor-sharp dialogue, and that signature Tarantino vibe. Everything looks familiar, everything makes sense, but then, boom, the film flips 180 degrees. Out of nowhere, we get vampires, horror vibes, and a full-on gore fest that feels like a wild grindhouse experiment. That twist split the audience in two. Some loved it, others were completely thrown off. So why did Tarantino and Rodriguez decide to take such a crazy risk with genres? Was it just a wild joke for fun? Or is there something deeper hiding behind all the blood and chaos? That's exactly what we're digging into in this breakdown. We'll also talk about Tarantino's strange obsession with women's feet, what grindhouse and exploitation cinema actually mean, and why From Dusk Till Dawn became one of the most surprising collaborations in Hollywood history. From Dusk Till Dawn is full of wild and memorable moments. But there's one scene that became straight-up legendary: Salma Hayek's dance.
That's what I call a fucking show!
It's the exact point where the movie splits in two: the before crime thriller and the after vampire horror show. But let's be real, the dance itself isn't what sparked the most buzz. The real shocker was what happened during it. Quentin Tarantino, playing one of the characters, literally sucks on Salma Hayek's toes. And that single moment was enough to fuel endless jokes and rumors about Tarantino's supposed foot fetish. Now, if you're thinking, come on, it's just one scene, big deal, you'd be right. One scene doesn't prove anything. But trust me, it gets a lot more interesting from here. And here's where it gets interesting. Because Tarantino's thing with women's feet? Yeah, that's not some random one-off moment in From Dusk Till Dawn. It shows up so often in his work that it's actually easier to list the films where it doesn't happen. Think about it. Pulp Fiction, that whole Jules and Vincent conversation about foot massages.
You know, touching his wife's feet and sticking your tongue in the holiest of holies ain't the same fucking ballpark. It's a foot massage. A foot massage is nothing.
Plus the iconic dance scene with Mia Wallace and Vincent Vega.
You can see that Pierre and Madame.
Jackie Brown, the shot where a character casually props her bare feet right in front of Robert De Niro's face.
Merchandise to him, he gets it out to my customers on all my bulk sales anyway. When did it throw it out of? Now, hole in it.
4 Rooms. Tarantino couldn't resist there either.
All right, that's our friend from downstairs. We just met her at the pool. You seem to be acquainted.
Yeah, Theodore and I go way back, don't we, Theodore?
Death Proof. Honestly, half the movie feels like a love letter to women's feet. Kill Bill. Beatrix forcing her toes to move after the coma.
Wiggle your big toe.
Not to mention the barefoot fight scenes. Inglourious Bastards. Hans Landa slipping that shoe onto Bridget von Hammersmark. I could keep going, but you get the idea. The only Tarantino movie where you don't see bare feet is Reservoir Dogs. and that's just because there aren't any women in it. But even in the films where he doesn't put feet right in your face, the shots are often framed in a way that keeps drawing your attention back to them. It's like he can't resist making them part of the visual language. And if we circle back to From Dusk Till Dawn, that famous scene gets even more interesting. Because Tarantino didn't just write the script, he cast himself in that moment. Which means what we're watching isn't just a story beat, but kind of a direct expression of his own imagination. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying this as a fact. Tarantino has never admitted to any of these rumors. But honestly, does it even matter? Every genius has their quirks, and maybe this is just his. And let's be real, those quirks are a big part of what makes his style so unforgettable. Here's a detail that really spices things up. Tarantino always pictured Salma Hayek in that role. In fact, the script was reworked specifically for her. The character was originally supposed to be blonde, but there was a problem. Salma flat out refused to do the snake dance. She had a real deep fear of snakes. According to rumors, Tarantino played hardball and told her, "If you don't take it, I'll give the part to Madonna." And just imagine that for a second. The most iconic scene in From Dusk Till Dawn could have looked completely different. In the end, Salma faced her fear, and what we got was a moment that basically defined the whole movie. It's a perfect example of how Tarantino's stubbornness and determination literally shaped some of the most legendary scenes in film history. And here's where the story gets even crazier. Rumor has it Tarantino pressured Salma by saying, "If you don't take it, I'll just give the role to Madonna," since he had just worked with her on 4 Rooms. Later, it turned out Madonna was never even considered for the part, but the bluff worked. Salma didn't want to miss out on such a bold, once-in-a-lifetime role, so she literally went through a kind of therapy just to overcome her fear of snakes. But now comes the funniest twist of all. Believe it or not, we partly owe the existence of From Dusk Till Dawn to an ear. Yep, an actual ear. Back when Tarantino was shooting his debut film Reservoir Dogs, he needed a special effects expert for that infamous ear-cutting scene. That's when Robert Kurtzman stepped in.
For sounds of the 70s.
By that time, Robert Kurtzman was already a pro. He had worked on Predator and Nightmare on Elm Street 3, so creating the ear gag for Reservoir Dogs was just a couple hours of work for him. His name didn't even make it into the credits, but Tarantino owed him a favor, and Kurtzman didn't forget. Fast forward a few years, Pulp Fiction blows up, Quentin becomes a household name, and Kurtzman shows up with a reminder. "Hey, remember that favor?" He pulls out a short story about a vampire bar and pitches the idea of turning it into a movie. Tarantino loved it, expanded it into a full script, and suddenly we had the bones of From Dusk Till Dawn.
Everybody be cool. You be cool.
At one point, Tarantino even thought about directing it himself, but in the end, he decided to focus on acting and handed the director's chair to his buddy Robert Rodriguez. The two shared not only a friendship, but also a passion for wild, pulpy genre cinema. And that's how this crazy cult classic was born. The movie kicks off like a straight-up crime thriller. We meet the Gecko brothers, Seth, cool, calculated, played by George Clooney, and his unhinged, unpredictable brother Richard, played by Tarantino himself. After busting out of prison and pulling off a robbery, they leave behind a trail of blood.
Seth, that's my brother Richie. Let's cut to the chase.
Along the way, they kidnap the family of a former preacher, Jacob Fuller, and his 2 kids. Their plan? Simple. Use the family's RV as cover to sneak across the Mexican border.
He's my son.
How's that happen? You don't look Japanese.
Neither does he. He looks Chinese.
Eventually, the whole crew rolls up to a bar with a very telling name, the Titty Twister. It's supposed to be nothing more than a pit stop, a meeting point with their Mexican contact.
Now, this is my kind of place.
But the bar turns out to be way stranger than expected. The vibe is dark, the crowd is sketchy, and then there's the star attraction, a dancer with the sinister name Santanico Pandemonium, who takes the stage with a hypnotic snake dance that sets the tone for what's about to come.
Kneel and worship at the feet of Santanico Pandemonium!
But right after Salma Hayek's iconic dance, the movie completely rips off its mask. In a split second, the bar turns into pure chaos. The staff reveal themselves as vampires, and all hell breaks loose. From that moment on, the hostages and the criminals have no choice. They've got to team up if they want to survive. What follows is a straight-up bloodbath. Crosses, holy water, makeshift weapons, and gallons of gore.
I don't care about living or dying anymore. I just want to send as many of these devils back to hell as I can.
Amen.
One by one, the characters drop until only two are left standing. Seth and Kate, the preacher's daughter.
I'm sorry.
And here's the thing. From Dusk Till Dawn isn't just a wild mashup where a crime thriller suddenly mutates into a vampire horror. This movie is a perfect example of what's called exploitation cinema, or more broadly, the kind of stuff American audiences used to know as grindhouse. Exploitation movies were never about high art. Their main goal wasn't philosophy or deep storytelling. It was shock value and quick cash. These films thrived on the stuff that hits the audience hardest: fear, taboo desires, violence, sex, and over-the-top gore. The plot, acting, even the production quality, all of that usually came second. What really mattered was the poster that screamed at you from across the street, the outrageous trailer, and a catchy slogan that promised something wild. They were cheap to make, but almost always made their money back thanks to pure curiosity. And the themes? Pretty much anything that could grab attention. Jungle cannibals, brutal slashers like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, biker gangs, hippie cults, post-apocalyptic chaos, whatever shocked people enough to buy a ticket. The formula was simple. Give the audience something outrageous and extreme, and they wouldn't be able to look away. Exploitation cinema is directly tied to the idea of grindhouse. Originally, that word didn't even describe the movies themselves. It was about the theaters that showed them. Small, rundown cinemas in the US, where for a couple of bucks you could sit down and watch 2, sometimes 3 movies back to back. The crowd wasn't looking for Oscar-level drama. They wanted shock, thrills, and stuff they'd never see on TV. And that's the point. Television would never touch these films. Too much sex, too much violence, too much pure madness. But in those grindhouse theaters, this wild, low-budget cinema found its audience. Over time, many of those films, once considered trash, turned into cult classics. And here's the fun part. From Dusk Till Dawn fits perfectly into that grindhouse tradition. It's outrageous, over the top, and designed to both shock and entertain. It takes the very things people loved about exploitation cinema, a crazy imagination, gallons of gore, and that raw, anything-goes energy, and cranks them up for a new audience. Later on, Tarantino and Rodriguez decided to go all in and pay direct tribute to grindhouse culture. The result was a joint project with the very telling name, Grindhouse. It came out as a double feature. Rodriguez's Planet Terror.
What? If I told you, you probably wouldn't believe me.
Robert Rodriguez, Planet Terror.
Made you something.
And Tarantino's Death Proof.
Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof.
Do I frighten you? This is my scar. It's your car.
And to really capture the feel of those old theaters, they didn't stop at just 2 movies. They threw in a bunch of fake trailers for films that never existed.
2 no-holds-barred feature-length motion pictures for the price of 1.
Made by Rodriguez, Edgar Wright, and musician Rob Zombie, whose music is soaked in horror vibes. And even if the name doesn't ring a bell, you've almost definitely heard his tracks in the soundtrack to The Matrix. So in that sense, From Dusk Till Dawn isn't just a weird genre experiment. It's more like the opening act to an entire cultural tradition. A movie that stands on its own, but at the same time feels like a love letter to grindhouse cinema, the very style that shaped so much of what both Tarantino and Rodriguez created later on. But here's the thing, From Dusk Till Dawn isn't your typical exploitation flick. Tarantino and Rodriguez take a completely different route. The first half plays out like a solid road movie mixed with a crime thriller. Sharp dialogue, tense atmosphere, and characters you instantly want to follow. And then, boom! The movie slams the brakes, flips everything upside down, and dives headfirst into pure grindhouse chaos with vampires, blood, and over-the-top madness. That's the key difference. In classic exploitation films, the story often felt like random scenes slapped together just to shock the audience. But here, everything's deliberate. Every scene has its place, building up the narrative step by step. So what Tarantino and Rodriguez did was clever. They borrowed the look and feel of Grindhouse, but delivered it through a carefully crafted, high-quality story. And there are two more things that make From Dusk Till Dawn stand out from classic exploitation flicks. First, the budget, $19 million. For a genre where cutting corners is basically the rule, that's an insane amount of money. Just to compare, Reservoir Dogs cost only about $1.2 million, and Pulp Fiction was made for $8.5 million. So yeah, From Dusk Till Dawn was playing in a whole different league right from the start. Second, the cast. George Clooney, Harvey Keitel, Salma Hayek. Come on, names like that just don't show up in grindhouse movies. Their presence didn't just bring extra attention, it gave the whole project a sense of weight and quality. And that alone pushed the film way beyond the label of cheap trash that most exploitation movies usually carry. But here's the paradox. Even with all its differences from classic grindhouse, From Dusk Till Dawn doesn't really try to look like smart cinema. I mean, who would even think of looking for philosophy in a story about criminals and vampires, right? And yet, if you pay close attention, there are some deeper ideas hiding under the surface. The first half of the film focuses on two groups of characters, and it's easy to split them into good and evil. On one side, the Gecko brothers. Seth and his younger brother Richard leave nothing but chaos and blood behind. During their escape, they manage to kill 4 police officers and an innocent woman, Heidi Vogel. That's our so-called evil, the dark side of the story.
There's Seth Gecko and his younger brother, Richard Gecko, resulting in the death of 4 Wichita law enforcement officers and this woman, Heidi Vogel.
On the other side, we've got the family of former preacher Jacob Fuller. He lost his wife, and along with her, his faith, sinking into a deep spiritual crisis. His kids, on the other hand, symbolize that good side of the story. Innocence, law-abiding, that classic desire to live by the rules.
Well, it's just that all our lives you've been a pastor.
At first glance, the setup looks obvious. The criminals are evil, the preacher and his children are good. But as the story goes on, those lines start to blur.
You said this bar is for truckers and bikers? I am a truck driver. These are my friends.
Fuller, who at first isn't even sure if God exists, slowly begins to show a toughness and determination that even shocks Seth.
Are you such a f***ing loser? You can't tell when you were born.
What'd you call me?
A man who's seen plenty of violence.
Jacob, I want you to have a drink with me. I insist.
And the kids, raised under strict religious rules all their lives, they suddenly get a taste of freedom. And it changes them completely.
Here we go. You slam it down, you knock the glass down on the table, all right? 1, 2, 3.
The whole group basically walks straight into a metaphorical hell, full of temptation, chaos, and violence. And this new reality reshapes them way more than they could have imagined.
I've had enough of your taunts.
Now, remember how Jacob keeps wrestling with the question, does God even exist? And if he does, is he fair?
To answer your question, yes, I do believe in Jesus. Yes, I do believe in God. But do I love them?
That theme of faith is way more important in the movie than it might seem at first glance.
Every person who chooses the service of God as his life's work has something in common. Many, many times during your life, you'll look at your reflection in the mirror and ask yourself, am I a fool?
And here's the interesting part. Tarantino himself is the last person you'd call religious. Sure, as a kid he went to a Christian school, but as he admitted later in interviews, he hated it and started skipping classes pretty quickly. By the time Tarantino hit 15, he was done with religion. With his mom's permission, he dropped out of Christian school completely. And I think that personal distrust of faith, whether he realized it or not, spilled right into the script for From Dusk Till Dawn. Look at Jacob Fuller. He's a preacher stuck in a brutal crisis of faith. When he and his kids get taken hostage by the Gecko brothers, he's forced to help them cross the border. And once that's done, he technically has a way out. He could have easily said, I held up my end of the deal, now we go our separate ways. He could have taken his family and gone back to safety, but he doesn't. Not because he can't, but because deep down, he doesn't want to. This moment is way deeper than it first looks. Sure, on Bumaga it's just crossing a border between two countries, but for Jacob, it's something else entirely. It's like stepping outside the walls of his own faith, crossing into a place he once thought was forbidden. It's not just survival anymore. It's him willingly walking into a kind of metaphorical hell, hoping he'll finally get some answers.
Am I a fool?
And here's where Tarantino and Rodriguez slip in their dark little joke about faith. Remember when George Clooney's character looks Jacob straight in the eye and says,
Because I know that whatever is out there trying to get in is pure evil straight from hell.
If there are vampires and hell, then maybe there's a god too.
And if there is a hell, and those sons of bitches are from it, then there has got to be a heaven, Jacob.
It sounds like just a throwaway line from a crazy B-movie, but in the bigger picture, it lands like a philosophical punchline. Even through all the blood and chaos, the story drags us back to the same timeless question. What do we actually believe in? But here's the twist. That line actually works the other way too. If we believe in God, then why not vampires? Why not demons or any other mythic creatures?
A servant of God can take a cross and shove it up these monsters' asses. A servant of God can bless the tap water and make it a weapon.
Tarantino and Rodriguez are clearly playing with this idea, putting faith on the same shelf as legends and superstitions. And that's their trademark irony. It feels like they're winking at the audience, asking, so, what really makes faith different from myth? Of course, this isn't the only way to read it, but to me, that layer feels almost too obvious to ignore. And that's what makes From Dusk Till Dawn so sneaky. Underneath all the blood and grindhouse madness, there's actually a philosophical jab. A reminder that the line between belief and fiction might be way thinner than we'd like to admit. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives into Tarantino's movies, let me know. Hit that like button and drop a comment about which film I should cover next. Maybe it's Kill Bill, or maybe you've got another Tarantino favorite in mind. Either way, I read every single comment, and I'll make sure to take your suggestions into account for the next video.